I'd like to thank everybody for joining me today. As we talk to, look at this year, it's flying by and we're right in the middle of the year, and it's a great time to review our mid-year planning opportunities. As you start looking at the year and what opportunities exist, the biggest thing I see is just don't wait until the end of the year and try and do it all at one time. The best time is to start now so that we can start using this year to do a lot more of our planning. If you think about this, if you start planning now, you have a better runway. You've got the opportunity to look at more strategies and look at, what type of elections you can make and changes you can make between now and the end of the year so that you've got more time to fix those problems and create a better year-end solution. And with this, part of it is getting real numbers. Don't just use estimates, but where are you really at? Let's look at, a real picture. And then we have time to coordinate with all the advisors so that, we don't have that panic at the end of the year. And finally, if you start looking at, compounding, if you're making small moves now, they add up. And we don't miss out on some of those easier tax reduction strategies. And those tax savings, if we get them implemented sooner, it's just the ability to compound our savings, so we have things moving through the end of the year and momentum into next year as well. And so I want to look at, five moves that you can make now. The first thing is, your tax projections. Run a mid-year tax projection so, when you get to December, you don't have any surprises. This is the ability to, spot bracket, opportunities, being able to remember income tax goes off of marginal tax rates. So if we can even reduce your income and drop you a bracket, well, we've saved money because we've saved on the amount that you're being taxed on the rate. And, we can time those income, tax deductions and income to get a better fit. Make sure your retirement contributions are on pace and in the right plan. You want to maximize your contributions as much as possible, but if you're planning now, you can start planning to make sure that income and deduction match up. And you can also now look and see, is moving to a Roth going to be an opportunity this year? Finally, looking at your beneficiaries, review all your beneficiary designations, make sure that they match what your planning is. And on top of that, we want to make sure all of your assets are titled in the right spot. If you have a revocable living trust or irrevocable trust, is everything put into the right spot? And your protection levels. We don't think about this a lot of times as a mid-year planning or a year-end planning, but it's an opportunity to check and see where your life insurance is. Check on your property and casualty insurance. Do you have enough coverage? Are there any gaps that we can see and make sure if there's an opportunity there to close those gaps that we take that opportunity now and start planning for that. And finally, in your securities portfolio, do you need to rebalance to hit your targets? Are there any losses that you can look at harvesting so you can take the opportunity to use those losses to offset some other income? And the big thing here, align your plan to make sure it's working for you. Now, if we look at, your tax and retirement, tax projections, we want to estimate your tax liability now so that we know, is this going to be a big year, a little bit lower year? We can decide, do we want to accelerate income into this year? Or do we want to defer income this year? A lot of times we look at it and we get to year end and we just assume, hey, what happened, happened. But we can look at accelerating deductions, or we can push those deductions to where we can bunch them up either into this year or the next year. And if we bunch those deductions up, remember, we're reducing the marginal tax rate. So the opportunity may be decrease the income this year, bunch up the deductions, bring your marginal rate down. And maybe that's a great time to do a Roth conversion because we're doing it at a lower marginal tax rate. If you have a business, we want to coordinate your business and personal. We don't want to look at each one in a vacuum and hope that they integrate together, but we want to coordinate all of your tax picture, whether it's all W-2 or if it's W-2 plus business income, whatever it is, we want to make sure that we've got a good picture of that going from this year to next year. In your retirement funding, we want to make sure we top off your 401k and IRA targets. We don't want to leave opportunities on the table. If we can put more money away, let's do it. As long as that's making sense for you and your planning picture. We can, if you've got a business, we can evaluate whether it makes sense to go to a defined benefit plan to get more into your retirement account. Or if we're controlling your tax picture, maybe we can move money, into a Roth so that we're not getting a tax deduction now, but all that money grows tax-free and can be accessed tax-free in the future. So we don't have that big tax bite in your retirement years. And the big thing is, if we're planning now, we can set your contributions now and keep those on autopilot between now and the rest of the year. If you look at your protection and legacy planning, do we want to, keep the plan, current, or do we just want to, remember that, hey, we put it in place and we pray that it works. So if you look at your protection side, confirm that your coverage matches today's needs. This is a great time to look at, what your needs are. Do you need more life insurance to cover estate liquidity, covering your liabilities, making sure your family has enough income if on an early passing? All of those things, we want to make sure the coverage matches up. If we're looking at your life insurance, we want to review in-force life insurance policies. We don't want to just say, hey, here's what it was sold on, but what is it doing currently and how is that going to affect you now through the rest of your life? If you have disability and long-term care needs, are there gaps there? Do you have enough long-term care, or do you have any long-term care planning done so that if those things were to happen, we're not raiding a retirement account and putting the well spouse in jeopardy of a retirement that's not expected, but making sure we've got those gaps covered. And then, of course, we want to align ownership and beneficiaries to make sure everything flows where it's supposed to. When we look at your legacy planning, this is a great time to go back and look at not only your trust planning and make sure your trust is funded correctly, the assets are in the right spot, but what about, how are your beneficiary designations? Is everything in line with your trust? Have we looked at the beneficiaries on your life insurance, on your retirement accounts, any of these things where we have a beneficiary designation? Are they going where they're supposed to go according to what your plan is? And if we're looking at this time of year, we want to look and see, have there been changes in the family, births, deaths, divorces, marriages, whatever it is? We want to keep make sure your plan is up to date on how the family is changing. And finally, making sure that everything's titled according to what you have in your plan. What is your plan design, and is everything titled to go where it's supposed to go? So if you look at this, look at the second half of the year, and I like this, build the second half on purpose. You've got 6 months between now and the end of the year. Is everything going to be lined up correctly to make sure we get the best result possible from your estate and legacy planning, your business planning? Of course, we're always worried about our tax planning, but let's make sure it's on schedule. So let's look at it, schedule a review, block that time out, on your calendar so that you can purposely go through this, get your documents together, and now coordinate with your team to make sure all of your planning is up to date and on track. And of course, we want to act before, the end of the fourth quarter, but quarter three and quarter four are a great time to put our plans in place to make sure everything matches according to what we want. So I appreciate everybody getting on today. If you have questions, reach out. If not, we'll talk again next week. Thank you.